Hi, my name is John Kerbo. I am working with a diverse range of people and ideas to try to help build a coalition of a new way to talk about politics, a new way to think independently of dogma and try to break away from tribalism and transcend the left-right divide to an extent and build a new sort of a new movement of independent thinking and reasoning, and something based more around compassion and human dignity as well as science, skepticism, and the evidence based approach, as opposed to a sort of dogmatic left right divide, my tribe versus your tribe. So, in describing what this movement means, some people are calling it a new center. And this is often about people breaking away from their tribe, or at least continuing to identify as someone on the left, or maybe in the center, maybe even to some degree on the right, but refusing to be bound by those labels, and trying to break away from some of the dogmatic and tribal tendencies within these groups, and sort of to form an emerging way to reason and think and discuss that is not as beholden to tribalism, that is more embracing of logic and reason, and willing to depart from the tribe, or at least depart from dogma when the evidence presents itself, and to continually side with human dignity, regardless of where an answer might lie along the spectrum. So, one of the goals of this video series is to try to explain and communicate this to people, especially people that are critical, people on the left and on the right, and to try to debunk some of the misconceptions of what this means. So, one of the biggest misunderstandings of what the center means is that it's about this vacuous moral ambiguity, this idea that, we have to be somewhere in the middle. Like a common response is, well, you mean a little bit of racism and bigotry and sexism is okay, just not a whole lot. I want to be in the middle. Or, we don't want to kill 6 million Jews. We'll just settle for 10,000 because we're centrist, right? That is the meme, this sort of idea of the cowardly centrist that's going around. Now, there is an actual problem with people that are morally vacuous, that try to be centrist just for the sake of being in the center. And this is a problem. And this kind of moral cowardice is something people often rightly call out. But that doesn't describe the kind of new centrism that people are often talking about. So I just want to briefly unpack the difference here. There are very different ways to be in the center, right? The kind of morally vacuous neutrality that many of these critics are thinking of is not what we're often referring to. The kind of reasonable center we are referring to here is not about always being in the middle. It's not about a default position or taking the center point along the moral terrain. Rather, it's a rejection of a certain style of thinking. It's a rejection of a way of thinking characterized by closed-mindedness and dogmatic tendencies and a sort of tribal element of zero-sum ideology. This black and white way of thinking, all or none, you're either with us or against us, and any kind of dissent has to be stigmatized and branded as being part of the enemy tribe. Okay, this style of thinking describes extremism. Not only have we seen it all across our American landscape and across our political spectrum, but I've seen this all over the world in many different countries, across different cultures, and from the Central Asia all the way to South America. Right, extremism is a style of thinking in the sense of how we're describing it, and it's something everyone has to reject across the spectrum. So we're not referring to extremist in the sense of someone being passionate and unwavering in a cause. For example, many might say, well, Dr. King was an extremist in the sense that he fought for civil rights in very unpopular ways and refused to compromise. That's not what we're talking about. That is not the kind of extremism we're referring to, if someone chooses to employ extremism in that kind of way. The kind of extremism we're referring to is not being extremely passionate about a good cause. We should all be extremists in that sense. It's about a style of thinking. And being in the center, or the new center, is not about being in the middle. It's about rejecting that style of thinking and trying to realign the political axis around human dignity, around compassion, the innate value of people, and of the individual human being, and of sentient creatures in general, and also of the need for scientific thinking, reason, evidence, and logic. If we can align the axis this way, then we can redefine our political landscape, and we can build a movement across demographics, across ideology, and really bring people together coast to coast in spite of differences around this common moral terrain and around this common intellectual and scientific terrain. this is something to think about, and I want to extend an olive branch and really build conversations with people on the left, on the right, and in the center. Let's figure out where we agree, and let's try to debunk misunderstandings of what we actually believe. Cheers.